Hello and welcome to English for Philosophy students. We're doing Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and we're in rule number 7, which is that you should choose meaning over expediency. We are in lesson 68 in the full book, lesson 21 of this rule. Last week, I disagreed a little bit with what Jordan Peterson was saying, and that was the last thing we spoke about. Jordan was saying that if we place the reduction of suffering as our main value at the pinnacle of our value structure, that would be good, and that we would be working for the kingdom of heaven. So that basically is right here. To place the alleviation of unnecessary pain and suffering at the pinnacle of your hierarchy of value is to work to bring about the kingdom of God on earth. And I was pointing out that in seminary, we examined relativistic morality. And at that time, we realized that people in society were placing love as the highest value. And with love as the highest value, it was leading them to moral mistakes. For example, they would reason that love requires society to permit girls to get abortions. It would be unloving to force the girl to have a baby that she is carrying. And yet, permitting abortion created a whole bunch of moral evils that have debased society. So, as a result, I put relationship with God, right relationship with God, as my highest value. And I allow everything to flow from that value. But I did not write a best-selling book called 12 Rules for Life, so we will continue reading the words of Jordan Peterson now as he continues to explain and defend his assertion that the pinnacle of the moral hierarchy should be the attempt to alleviate unnecessary suffering. So let us read on, beginning here. Carl Jung, observed that the construction of such a moral hierarchy was inevitable, although it could remain poorly arranged and internally self-contradictory. For Jung, whatever was at the top of an individual's moral hierarchy was, for all intents and purposes, that person's ultimate value, that person's God. It was what the person acted out. It was what the person believed most deeply. Something enacted is not a fact, or even a set of facts. Instead, it is a personality, or more precisely, it is a choice between two opposing personalities. It's Sherlock Holmes or Moriarty. It's the Batman or the Joker. It's Superman or Lex Luthor. Charles Francis Xavier or Magneto. Thor or Loki. It's Abel or Cain. And it's Christ and Satan. If it's working for the ennobling of being, for the establishment of paradise, then it's Christ. If it's working for the destruction of being, for the generation and propagation of unnecessary suffering and pain, then it's Satan. That is the inescapable archetypal reality. Let's go back to the beginning of this section. Jung observed that the construction of such a moral hierarchy was inevitable. Such a moral hierarchy, such a means a moral hierarchy like this one. In what sense, like this one? I believe what Jung was saying was that all people, it is inevitable that you should not, all people must construct for themselves a moral hierarchy. In other words, all people automatically order their values and have certain values at the top, others lower, some at the bottom, not valued at all. This is not a choice we make. You should make a moral hierarchy. This is simply a fact of how our brains work, how our personalities work, how we make sense of the world. It is inescapable, inevitable, in that all human beings necessarily must do it in order to function in the world. And if you don't, there is something wrong with you. You are retarded. You are cognitively impaired. It is not possible to live your life without some moral hierarchy, some sense of what is right and valuable compared to what is wrong or not valuable. It says in the Bible that the law is written on people's hearts. Not just Christians, but even pagans instinctively know from observing the world the basic natural law, the basic law of right or wrong. If you have a person who says that they are communist and they do not believe in private property, but then you go and steal their car, they will immediately call the police or attack you and take back their property. Because this moral hierarchy is not a set of rules, it is a perception of reality. Now, it is possible to train this wrong. For example, there are cultures outside of the reach of historical religion. Some cultures, Stone Age tribes discovered 50 years ago, And they had societal values which were very bad. For example, there was one tribe that I read about that valued treachery. That is stabbing someone in the back, making someone believe you are their friend, and then turning and killing them. This culture thought that was the height of moral virtue, to be most clever at ways of betrayal. After that culture came to Christ, they repented of that value and installed Christian values of service and love of others and humility and honesty and faithfulness. But previous to the coming of Christianity, the people had bad things at the top of their moral hierarchy. So, what Jung is observing is not that people should construct a moral hierarchy, but that they do construct it as part of normal psychological development. Also, he is not saying that their moral hierarchy is good or bad. He is simply saying each person has one. And so Jung observed that the construction of such a moral hierarchy was inevitable, although it could remain poorly arranged and internally self-contradictory. So poorly arranged. So bad stuff at the top and good stuff at the bottom. And internally self-contradictory. So I believe that I should be able to steal, but if someone steals from me, it's wrong. That would be internally self-contradictory. For Jung, whatever was at the top of an individual's moral hierarchy was, for all intents and purposes, that person's ultimate value, that person's God. Okay, so when it says for Jung, what it means is in the opinion of Carl Jung, or Carl Jung believes and states that whatever was at the top of an individual's moral hierarchy was, for all intents and purposes, that phrase, it's one phrase. It's not a bunch of sentences. It's a single idiom. For all intents and purposes. And it means, practically speaking. As a matter of practicality, in fact, it's the same as saying in fact. In fact, whatever was at the top of an individual's moral hierarchy was that person's God. Okay, so your God is at the top of your moral hierarchy. Now, for me, meaning in my opinion, if what's at the top of my moral hierarchy is my God, then I want to be sure God is at the top of my moral hierarchy. Righteousness, displaying the character of God, that is the top of my moral hierarchy. So, anyway, not to beat a dead horse. That's another idiom that means I should not keep saying the same thing over and over again. So I need to let go of the fact that I disagree with Peterson's basic premise of the paragraph and not keep talking about it. So I will not continue to beat a dead horse. I will not continue to speak of this forever. Okay, so anyway, for Jung, what was at the top of an individual's moral hierarchy was, for all intents and purposes, that person's ultimate value, that person's God. It was what the person acted out. That means it determined the behavior of the person. Someone once said, if you want to see what a person's God is, just ask to look at their bank statement, because the way they spend their money will reveal what is most important to them. So that is a little similar to the idea that your ultimate value is what you act out. It is what you act upon. There is another little story we tell. We talk about some people sitting in a house, in the living room, just sitting around. And a person runs in and says, "The roof is on fire. The house is burning. Get out or you will die." Some of the people say, "I believe you," but they do not get up and run out. Other people say, "That's not true. That cannot be true. It's not true." And then they run out. They are saying, "I do not believe," but their actions show that they do believe. Whereas those who are sitting saying, "Okay, yeah, that's terrible. I believe you, but don't run out," those people do not really believe. So, a person's ultimate value is what they act out. It is what the person believed most deeply. You can see from someone's bank statement what they think is the most important, even if they say they think maybe the church is more important than entertainment. How much money do they pay per month on cable TV, subscriptions to streaming services, etc., compared to what they give to the kingdom of God? Okay. Something enacted is not a fact or even a set of facts. Instead, it's a personality, or more precisely, a choice between two opposing personalities. So, if I say I believe something to be at the top of the moral hierarchy, I can say that, but if I am not acting it out, then I do not believe it deeply. If I am living my life, for example, some people in America, in the United States, they try to oppose legal abortion. So they go to the abortion facilities and they pray with people and they carry a sign and they get arrested, they go to jail, etc. It permeates their whole life and personality. This is something enacted. They don't have to say overruling abortion is most important. They don't have to say that. You can look at their life and see their whole life speaks that message. So, for that person, the idea that abortion is a terrible evil that must be reversed, legal abortion, is not just a fact or even a set of facts. It's a personality. The personality of a pro-life activist. Or, more precisely, a choice between two opposing personalities. Some people say that the final destiny of human beings is binary. It's one of two choices. It is either the beatific vision or the miserific vision. It is either becoming like the angels, sitting at the right hand of God and Christ, judging angels, or it is becoming a devil, like food for the devils. So we as human beings are too small, too insignificant to actually become gods and demons. We either become perfect reflections of the glory of God in Christ, or perfect reflections of the devil. So there's only two choices. We cannot really be ourselves as distinct from God, our Creator. So our choices are Sherlock Holmes or Moriarty. These two are arch enemies. Moriarty is the nemesis of Sherlock Holmes in the literature, the stories of Sherlock Holmes. Batman or the Joker. If you know these movies, you know what it's talking about. Batman is the force for good. The Joker is the force for evil. Superman or Lex Luthor, same thing. Charles Francis Xavier or Magneto. I think Charles Francis Xavier was the creator of them, and Magneto was the I forget what they are, the anti-hero. Thor or Loki, Abel or Cain, Christ or Satan. So we have only two choices, basically good and evil, light and darkness. If it's working for the ennobling of being, for the establishment of paradise, then it is Christ. Okay, so if what you are doing in your life is making being better, morally better, spiritually better, materially better, better in every way, then what you are doing is reflecting Christ. If what you are doing is working for the destruction of being, for the generation and propagation of unnecessary suffering and pain, then it's Satan. And you can think of people in history, Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, who did this on a very grand scale. That's the inescapable archetypal reality. And again, inescapable means you cannot say, I will choose a third way. I will just be myself. I won't be Christ or Satan. It's inescapable that you will either move up to glory or down to evil. Moving on. Expedience is the following of blind impulse. It's short-term gain. It's narrow and selfish. It lies to get its way. It takes nothing into account. It's immature and irresponsible. Meaning is its mature replacement. Meaning emerges when the impulses are regulated, organized, and unified. Meaning emerges from the interplay between the possibilities of the world and the value structure operating within that world. If the value structure is aimed at the betterment of being, the meaning revealed will be life-sustaining. It will provide the antidote for chaos and suffering. It will make everything matter. It will make everything better. So, expedience is the following of blind impulse. Do you remember early in this rule in this essay and in this book. Jordan Peterson talked about early, like maybe apes who are evolving into human beings. So very, very early human beings who, in their animal form, they were like eating everything. If they made a kill, they would eat until it spoiled. And then it occurred to them, maybe if I share some, giving some up now, then later I will receive something. So that was a first step. So expedience is back in that eat now for me. It is our base impulse to get what feels good to us today without any thought of others or future or surpassing moral values. So it's short-term gain, and that means nothing in the future. It's narrow and selfish. Narrow is the opposite of broad. It's all focused on one thing to get for yourself, not noticing everything you are losing. It's selfish. It lies to get its way. So expedience will tell a lie, not even thinking of the consequences if they are found out. It takes nothing into account. To take something into account is to consider it and think about it and change your choice because you have thought of this thing. So expedience doesn't think about anything. It just grabs and consumes. It's immature and irresponsible. Interesting how to describe it, you have to take the negative of a positive virtue. It lacks maturity. It is not mature. It lacks responsibility. It is not responsible. Immature. This is what babies do. They behave expediently. Irresponsible. Also what children are. Children must be governed by adults because children are not responsible, cannot take responsibility for themselves or others. Take responsibility. They cannot be expected to do what is even in their own best interest, even good for them. Meaning is its mature replacement. Whose mature replacement? Expedience. Meaning is the replacement for expedience. So expedience grabs what you want without any idea of what is good. Meaning understands all the factors and is able to choose what is good. It replaces expedience. Meaning emerges when impulses are regulated, organized, and unified. Impulses, that's the thing that expedience acts on. And when instead of acting on your impulses, you regulate your impulses, organize them, and unify them, then order emerges in your life, and your life takes on meaning. When you start making the right choices according to a well-constructed value hierarchy. Meaning emerges from the interplay between the possibilities of the world and the value structure operating within the world. So there may be the possibility of grabbing and eating something, but the possibility also exists that you could wait half an hour and eat something that would be better for you. So eating doesn't have to be like a puppy, my puppy at home. He sees any food and whatever it is. And as a result, this is not what human beings need to do with every opportunity. What we need to do is hold back and see all of the opportunities in their context, all of the possibilities of the world, and then order the possibilities according to a true value structure that operates within the world. If the value structure is aimed at the betterment of being, the meaning revealed will be life-sustaining. It will provide the antidote for chaos and suffering. It will make everything matter, and it will make everything better. In my family, we help each other a lot. My son, Tobias, is currently helping to automate my business. He is giving many, many hours of his expert time to providing my business with a structure which will make it more profitable, easier for me to run, easy to replicate the business, and easy to sell the business if I wish to. My daughter Michelle also is helping to write new curricula for the driving school, my business. My son-in-law Pedro often comes and teaches at the driving school, and my son Carlos has created organizational spreadsheets. All of this work that they have done represented somewhat of a sacrifice. If they were being expedient, they would have not done the work. They would have gone either to their own jobs to make money directly, or they would have been on vacation during that time, enjoying themselves. And who cares about mom's business? But because they regulated their impulses, organized them, and unified them, they recognized that to build this business as an asset of our family, as a property of our family, would help all of us in the future, providing money and jobs and stability for all the family members and many other people. We have had untold blessings from this driving school. I can really see what Jordan Peterson is saying, that the combined actions of all of these individuals who are not working for themselves, they are working for the betterment of others, specifically me, but generally. They are creating order out of chaos, and they are creating a blessing. And they're creating an avenue for many, many blessings in the future. They are making life better for many people. We employ 12 people here. So the meaning revealed by their behavior has been life-sustaining for me and will be for them. It provides an antidote to the chaos and suffering that came about when my husband left our family, leaving me and our children with no financial support. Now we have financial support. It will make everything matter. That means it will give meaning to everything. It will make everything better. So, bottom line, expedience is immature and bad and does not lead to a good result. Meaning is what happens when you regulate your impulses and act according to a well-constructed value hierarchy. So let us move on. If you act properly, your actions allow you to be psychologically integrated now and tomorrow and into the future, while you benefit yourself, your family, and the broader world around you. Everything will stack up and align along a single axis. Everything will come together. Let me just comment on that first sentence or two in light of the driving school example. If you act properly, your actions allow you to be psychologically integrated now and tomorrow and into the future. When my son, Tobias, was 17, we purchased the driving school, and he took over and learned how to manage it. He worked for 3 years, age 17 to 20, managing the driving school, and they were hard years for him. He wanted to quit many times. He was angry most of the time. Whenever I would walk through and see his face, he almost always looked upset. It was very hard for him to do it. But he believed it was the right thing for him to do. He knew it was helping me and it was necessary for our family. And he knew it was teaching him valuable lessons and helping him too. So he acted properly. Now, he did not act according to his preference. He didn't do what would be most enjoyable for him, but he did what was morally required of him because he was helping his mother, who had no support. This was this was pretty quickly after his father had left. Well, it was 4 years, but it was pretty essential. And I think he saw himself as doing the right thing by his mother and his family. So it's not just choosing a good choice. It's obeying a moral imperative. So a moral imperative is like a law. It's something that if you don't do it, you're wrong. So this is not really in the realm of choice. It's in the realm of moral duty. Okay, so if you act properly according to your moral duty, whether you want to or not, whether you think it is good for you or not, if you act properly, your actions allow you to be psychologically integrated now. Okay, so psychologically integrated. It is very good in psychological terms to be integrated. If your personality is disintegrated or fractured or like split personality, dissociated. All of those words talk about a failure to integrate all of your experiences into one coherent personality with a good moral perception. Moral perception. So, if you act properly according to your duty, your actions will allow you to be psychologically integrated now. People who are not psychologically integrated, or perhaps you could say, people who feel guilty because they are not doing their duty, they have a lot of symptoms. Like, for example, they have trouble sleeping, they have trouble eating, they develop nervous tics, like they have all kinds of symptoms of psychological decay. This is what comes from internalizing shame and guilt, and you have it because you didn't act properly. For example, supposing your mother called and left a message saying, "Please come and visit me tonight. I'm not feeling well. I really need you to come over." And you get the message, but maybe you had a date that night and you didn't really want to go see your mother. So you pretended you didn't hear your messages. And then that night she died of whatever was wrong. And the next morning when you went by to say, "Oh, Mom, I'm sorry, I missed your message," you find her dead on the floor. You did not act properly, and as a result, you will not be psychologically integrated today or any day soon, because you will be tormented by guilt. But if you act properly, as Tobias did with the driving school, his actions allowed him to be psychologically integrated then. He felt good about himself. He could live with himself. That's what we say. You can't live with yourself if you behave badly. He could live with himself then. Plus, later, he took all of the lessons he learned in the driving school and used them to get into the University of Virginia, which is one of the best, most exclusive colleges in Virginia. And a degree from the business school of the University of Virginia is a ticket into the upper class in the United States. So he benefited himself in the future, and then into the more distant future, he now is running a business, and he is still acting properly and helping me, and it is still very hard for him, and he gets angry and frustrated. So virtue is its own reward. So I can see, if you act properly in the now, it allows you to live with yourself today, and in the future you will be better, and in the future beyond that, even better. While, and all the while, concurrently, you are benefiting yourself, your family, and the broader world around you. And this is demonstrably true in this example of Tobias. Everything will stack up and align along a single axis. So you have one, your good action is bringing blessings to you, psychological improvement, blessings to your world, blessings to your family, all around that single benefit that you have created. Everything will come together. This produces maximal meaning. In a sense, he's using the word meaning like information or order. When we talk about creation, the creation of the cosmos, we talk about information and order. The opposite of information and order is chaos. So these good moral actions, they somehow attract to themselves good results that all align, creating meaning, creating order. This stacking up multiple benefits all along an axis is a place in space and time whose existence we can detect with our ability to experience more than simply revealed here and now by our senses. Whose existence we can detect with our ability to experience more than is simply revealed here and now by our senses. So it's an extrasensory perception. We can detect when things are being blessed or when people are going downhill, which are obviously limited to their information gathering and representational capacity. So our senses are limited by their information gathering and representational capacity. So our senses can only see certain things, but we have an extrasensory spiritual perception that can detect blessing or people spiraling downhill into chaos, morally and in every other way. Meaning trumps expedience. Trumps means meaning is greater than in every case. Meaning is always better than expedience. Meaning gratifies all impulses, now and forever. So you may say, oh, gratifying impulses, that's expedience. No. Expedience fails to gratify your deepest impulse, because our deepest impulse is the thirst for that which is good, that which is health producing, wholesome, pure and beautiful. And expedience just grabs what feels good, even if it destroys our lives. Meaning, which is the regulation of impulse, ultimately fulfills our impulses, now and forever. That's why we can detect it with our spiritual ESP, extrasensory perception. I'm going to see how much is left here. We are not moving forward quickly, but we'll read one more paragraph. If you decide that you are not justified in your resentment of being, despite its inequity and pain, you may come to notice, I'll get a new color. You may come to notice things you could fix to reduce, even by a bit, some unnecessary pain and suffering. You may come to ask yourself, what should I do today? In a manner that means, how could I use my time to make things better instead of worse? Such tasks may announce themselves as the pile of undone paperwork that you could attend to, the room you could make a bit more welcoming, or the meal that could be a bit more delicious and more gratefully delivered to your family. Back to the beginning. If you decide you are not justified in your resentment of being. Okay, so you have to think back to earlier in the rule and in the book that people are resentful of being because of all the suffering. Curse God. He's the one who made being so terrible. Maybe you'll say, well, It's not so bad for me, and sometimes it's good. I'm not justified in resenting the way things are. So as soon as you decide that you're not justified in resenting, the next step, you may come to notice things you could fix. So as soon as you stop shaking your fist and saying, curse God for the suffering in the world, stop that, and then you say, there's a little bit of suffering. I can fix that. And this will reduce, even by a little bit, some unnecessary pain and suffering. There's a story we tell in English of a child who is on the beach, and a wave came up and left a bunch of live starfish up on the beach. And the boy, there's just thousands of them, and the boy is picking them up and throwing them in. And an adult comes and says, you can't do all of them. Why bother? And you can't make a difference to all these starfish. And the boy listened, and then he picked up and threw another starfish into the ocean. And he said, I made a difference to that one. So we also say it is better to light a single candle than to sit and curse the darkness. And a single candle really does dispel a lot of darkness. So we might notice a few things we could change. You may come to ask yourself, what should I do today? Notice it's should, not could I do today. What could I do to reduce suffering is an option. You can choose or not choose. What should I do is a moral duty, and you're bad if you don't. So what should I do today? In a manner that means, how could I use my time to make things better, not worse? This is actually very relevant to my situation in my home. I live with my daughter, Tiffany, and I moved in there partially to alleviate my loneliness and partially to help my daughter with her 5 children, and partially to help the children with their education and their training and upbringing. So it is my duty to help, but a lot of times I become resentful of the chaos and the lack of order and the children running around screaming, not cared for, not fed, because my daughter needs help. And I become resentful that she didn't manage her time better today. But what I need to do is decide that I am not justified in resenting the way things are in the house, but simply wake up in the morning and say, what can I do to help, even a little bit? And if I can get into that mindset, then I will create order and make things better. Not perfect, but better. So, such tasks may announce themselves. In other words, you will notice such tasks as the pile of undone paperwork that you could attend to, or the room you could make a bit more welcoming, or the meal you could make more delicious. So these are small things we could do to make things better for our family. So that is a note. Well, quickly, let's read one more. You may find that if you attend to these moral obligations, attend to them means do them, and notice they are moral obligations, not choices. Once you have placed make the world better at the top of your value hierarchy, that you experience ever deepening meaning. I have noticed that when I attend to the obligations, moral obligations in my home, that I do experience meaning. And when I neglect my obligations and just shake my fist at the chaos, then all I experience is chaos. Okay, so you're going to experience meaning, ever deepening. So it will be more and more as time goes by. It is not bliss. It is not happiness. Okay, so we're not trying to be, wow. We're not trying to gain fun for ourselves. But it is something, okay, more like atonement for the criminal fact of your fractured and damaged being. It's payment of the debt you owe for the insane and horrible miracle of your existence. It's how you remember the Holocaust. It's how you make amends for the pathology of history. It's adoption of responsibility for being a potential denizen of hell. It is willingness to serve as an angel of paradise. Okay, so this paragraph I find rather negative, but what he is saying is, if we went back to the, right here, it was from this that I drew my fundamental conclusions. It was from what? It was from the idea that I myself could have been like a Nazi prison guard. It is from his fundamental presupposition was that evil, the potential for evil was in him. Therefore, the potential for good must be in him. So now he's going back and saying, if we choose good, we are making up for the fact that the potential for evil is within us. And within humanity, we have done so much evil. So as a representative of humanity, we can try to undo the evil and do good instead. It's saying, I'm willing to serve as an angel of paradise, and I'm taking responsibility for being a potential denizen of hell. So he's basically saying it's the least we can do to undo the evil that humanity has done. Okay, let's stop there and take it up again next time. Thank you.